So I see the CBC has drank the Kool-Aid regarding the Donald Trump Donald Trump economic expansion. It made me laugh. Bunch of nonsense. No, it's Harper seems to have done a real job on the CBC. They've become the conservative broadcasting corporation. This is a quote from the CBC, which is supposed to be a good news source. Trump's stated plans to cut taxes and wrap up infrastructure spending is expected to boost the U.S. economy, and the Federal Reserve is expected to boost U.S. interest rates, which could draw investors toward the U.S. greenback. This is like nonsense on so many levels, right? Cutting taxes is going to boost the economy, wrong. He's going to wrap up infrastructure spending, wrong. Increased interest rates increases the value of the dollar, wrong. It's like total right-wing junk economics. The CBC pushing right-wing junk economics. Become the conservative broadcasting corporation. I think it's time the country kind of clues into this, that the CBC is a very right-wing source. I do hope that the liberals eventually kind of crack down on it, but I mean, they couldn't do it. You can imagine the optics, right? The first thing the liberals do is they chop off heads at the CBC. They get nailed for it. They've got to wait it out a little bit. Hopefully a lot of the people that Harper brought in are going to get the boot. Rather, I'd expected a congressional push for austerity and entitlement clawbacks. That's what's actually going to happen. It's going to lead to a punishing recession, which will lead to a strong sell-off. Republicans are generally terrible for the American economy and usually create recessions. The combination of congressional austerity with a protectionist White House is likely going to be disastrous. I agree that they probably will hike rates, but hiking rates doesn't affect the currency. Neither does cutting rates. It's nonsense. The Canadian dollar is traded on a market. Rates are not meaningful because traders sell the currency quickly. So they buy huge volumes and then they sell it off within a few hours or even a few minutes. It's all digitized nowadays. It's computer algorithms. It's not even people making decisions. It's logic gates on a machine. So the dollar does not react to macroeconomic factors either. The value is determined solely by the perception of investors, not by causal economic laws. These variables, A implies B, charts go down. It's a bunch of fucking nonsense, okay? These predictions are consequently always worthless. And when they are right, it is by sheer chance. That said, I'd also expect that the sum effect of Trump's policies is going to push oil lower, unless he manages to piss off OPEC or something, which is possible. And because Canada's dollar is perceived as a petrocurrency, that remains that okay, yeah. Because Canada's dollar is perceived as a petrocurrency, that remains the dominant psychological factor on the value that the Canadian currency is traded at. Those commas, they can mess you up sometimes. Watch out, they're like walls. They're there and you gotta avoid walking into them. So what we're going to be looking at with the loonie is finding a middle point, okay, between a Republican recession, what is probably going to be a brutal Republican recession, which helps the loonie, and very low oil prices, which doesn't. So you're going to have, the collapsing U.S. economy pulling the loonie up, and then you're going to have collapsing oil prices, or at the least, continual low oil prices, which pulls it down. And I'm not going to guess where it balances out. That would be silly of me. And I don't think you should guess either, but I'd bet more on stability than instability. I've got a link here to CNBC. and it's quoting a report from Goldman Sachs. Direct quote. While we see substantial support in Congress for proposals to cut taxes and reform the tax code, our current impression is that market expectations of quick fiscal expansion may be running ahead of political and legislative realities. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's always, I guess maybe Goldman Sachs is reading my blog. So, tax cut, yeah, check. That'll happen. Infrastructure spending, no, it's not happening. The report also makes the error of assigning GDP growth to tax cuts. It's up here too. I say error because I don't believe that Goldman Sachs actually thinks that, right? They don't believe in Reaganomics. It's not. These are well-educated people. They went to the best schools. They went to all the best schools, and they know that Reaganomics is nonsense. But they push this nonsense out there because it justifies the tax cuts that they want. Expect a recession, and pretty quickly. And don't be surprised if the recession turns into a depression either. Donald Trump is going to be terrible for the economy. It's going to be a wonderful decline.